Hello, dear friend. Welcome back to the Sleep Wizard's Library. I'm Evan Reed, and I'm so glad you've joined me here tonight. Outside, the world is hushed and still. Perhaps snow is falling where you are. Or perhaps you're simply seeking a moment of calm in the gentle darkness of evening. Whatever has brought you here, know that this is a safe space. A quiet corner where stories unfold like whispers, where mysteries reveal themselves, not with jarring shouts, but with the soft clarity of a candle flame cutting through shadow. Tonight, we find ourselves in Victorian London, in the depths of winter, when the great city wore its festive garments of holly and gaslight. It's Christmas time, that season when even the coldest hearts might soften, and when the strangest mysteries seem to find their way to the door of 221B Baker Street. Before we begin our tale this evening, I want to take just a moment to speak from my heart. Creating these stories, crafting these peaceful escapes for you, is truly a labor of love. If you find comfort here, if these tales help you drift into restful sleep, or simply provide a respite from the noise of the world, please consider supporting Sleepy Tales. Your support, whether through a kind review, sharing the podcast with someone who might need it, or contributing if you're able, helps keep these stories coming. It allows me to continue spending my evenings here with you, spinning tales of mystery and wonder. Thank you, truly, for being part of this community. Now then, settle yourself comfortably. Let your shoulders drop, your breathing slow. Close your eyes if you wish. We're about to step through the veil of time, back to a gaslit December evening in 1889, where a most peculiar case awaits the attention of Mr. Sherlock Holmes. The adventure of the frosted Sapphire. The snow fell upon London with that peculiar silence which transforms even the most cacophonous metropolis into something resembling a cathedral. I stood at the window of our sitting room at 221B Baker Street, watching the flakes descend through the amber glow of the street lamps, each one a tiny mystery dissolving upon contact with the pavement below. "You're unusually pensive this evening, Watson," came the familiar voice of Sherlock Holmes from his chair by the fire. He had not looked up from the chemical treatise he was perusing, yet somehow he had observed my mood with that uncanny perception which never ceased to amaze me. "It's Christmas Eve, Holmes," I replied, turning from the window. "A time for reflection, wouldn't you say?" "Reflection is the province of the idle mind, my dear fellow. Action, that is the antidote to melancholy." He set down his book and reached for his pipe. Though I confess, even London's criminal classes seem to have succumbed to the season's soporific influence. We haven't had a case of any interest in nearly a fortnight. As if in answer to his complaint, the bell rang below, followed by the sound of Mrs. Hudson's voice and hurried footsteps upon the stairs. A moment later, our landlady appeared at the door, her face flushed with the cold. "A lady to see you, Mr. Holmes," she announced. "A Lady Ashworth. She seems most distressed." "Show her up at once," Holmes said, his gray eyes suddenly alive with interest. He cast aside his pipe and sat forward in his chair, his fingers steepled before him in that characteristic pose I knew so well. The woman who entered our sitting room was perhaps 40 years of age, handsomely dressed in a coat of deep burgundy velvet with ermine trim. Her face, though marked by good breeding and intelligence, bore the unmistakable signs of acute anxiety. Her gloved hands trembled as she removed the snow from her shoulders. "Mr. Holmes," she began, her voice wavering. "Dr. Watson, thank goodness you're here. I have nowhere else to turn. The police, well, The police believe there has been no crime at all, but I know better. I know my husband. Holmes gestured to the chair opposite his own. Please sit, Lady Ashworth. Mrs. Hudson, perhaps some tea. The lady has clearly come through foul weather. Once our visitor was settled, and Mrs. Hudson had departed, Holmes continued. Now then, pray tell us your story from the beginning. Omit no detail, however insignificant it may seem. Lady Ashworth drew a deep breath, composing herself. My husband is Sir Edmund Ashworth, the philanthropist. Perhaps you've heard of him. The Ashworth Foundation, I interjected. Yes, indeed. Your husband's charitable works are well known throughout London. For the past 15 years, Lady Ashworth continued, Edmund has hosted a Christmas charity gala at our home in Belgravia. It is the highlight of the season for many. This year's gala was held last evening, the 23rd of December. We had perhaps 200 guests, members of Parliament, prominent businessmen, artists, clergy. The purpose, as always, was to raise funds for the city's orphanages and workhouses. She paused, her eyes glistening with tears that she fought to contain. The centerpiece of the evening, the item which always generates the most excitement and the most generous bids, is the Ashworth Sapphire, a magnificent blue stone, flawless and extraordinarily rare, set in an antique gold pendant. It has been in Edmund's family for 7 generations. Each year, he auctions it off to the highest bidder, and then, before the winner can claim it, he offers to repurchase it for double the winning bid, with all proceeds going to charity. A clever mechanism for fundraising, Holmes observed. The competitive instinct of your guests ensures high bids, and your husband's repurchase doubles the charitable contribution while keeping the heirloom in the family. Precisely. Last night, the Sapphire fetched £4,000 from Lord Pemberton. Edmund, as is tradition, immediately offered £8,000 to reclaim it. The transaction was recorded, the money pledged, and the evening continued with great success. We raised nearly £15,000 in total. A remarkable sum, I said warmly. Your husband must be very pleased. That is where the mystery begins. Dr. Watson. Lady Ashworth's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. This morning, when Edmund went to place the sapphire back in its case in his study, it was gone. The pendant has vanished. Holmes's expression did not change, but I detected a slight tension in his posture, the hunter's alertness when the scent of prey is detected. When did your husband last see the sapphire? After the auction concluded, at approximately 10:30 in the evening. Edmund placed it in his waistcoat pocket. He showed it to several guests who wished to examine it more closely. The last person to handle it, besides Edmund, was Father Thomas Grayson, the vicar of St. Barnabas. He held it up to the light, remarked upon its beauty, and returned it to my husband. Edmund distinctly remembers putting it back in his pocket. And what occurred between 10:30 and this morning? The guests departed by midnight. Edmund and I retired to our chambers at approximately 1 o'clock. This morning, when Edmund dressed, he discovered the sapphire was not in his waistcoat pocket. We have searched everywhere. His dressing room, our bedroom, the hallways, the rooms where the gala was held. It has simply vanished. Holmes rose and began to pace, his dressing gown swirling about him. Tell me about your household. Who had access to the areas your husband occupied last evening? Our staff, of course. We employ a butler, Grimsby. He's been with Edmund for 20 years. A housekeeper, Mrs. Blackwood. 3 housemaids, a cook, and 2 footmen. All have been with us for years. I cannot believe any of them would steal from us. Belief, Lady Ashworth, is the enemy of truth, Holmes said, not unkindly. Facts are what we require. Were all servants present during the gala? Yes. They were serving guests, taking coats, attending to refreshments. And the guests themselves? You said 200 attended. Surely some were strangers. Most were long-standing friends and supporters. However, there were perhaps 20 to 30 individuals whom I did not personally know. Guests brought by other guests, members of charitable societies, that sort of thing. Holmes stopped his pacing and fixed Lady Ashworth with an intense gaze. You said the police believe no crime has occurred. Why is that? Our visitor's cheeks colored slightly. Because, and this is what makes no sense whatsoever, Edmund's waistcoat was found this morning with the pocket sewn shut. Not merely buttoned or fastened, Mr. Holmes, but sewn with careful stitches, using thread that matches the waistcoat perfectly. The police inspector suggested that Edmund might have dreamed he placed the sapphire in his pocket, or that the stone never left its case to begin with. But I was there, I saw him show it to guests, and Edmund is not a man given to delusions. Most intriguing, Holmes murmured. A pocket sewn shut. Watson, what do you make of that? I considered the question carefully. It suggests premeditation, Holmes. Someone planned to create the appearance that the sapphire was never placed in the pocket at all. Elementary, yet accurate. Lady Ashworth, I shall need to examine your home, the waistcoat in question, and to interview your husband and staff. Is Sir Edmund available this afternoon? He is at home, waiting anxiously. He will see you at any time. Excellent. Watson, fetch your coat. I believe we have a case worthy of the season. The Ashworth residence was a magnificent Georgian townhouse on Eden Square, its windows glowing warmly against the gray afternoon sky. Wreaths of holly adorned the doors, and through the windows I could see the remnants of the previous night's festivities. An enormous Christmas tree, still decorated with candles and ornaments, garlands draped across mantelpieces. Sir Edmund Ashworth received us in his study, a room lined with books and dominated by a large desk covered in correspondence. He was a tall, distinguished man of perhaps 50, with iron gray hair and the upright bearing of a military officer. Though Lady Ashworth had mentioned he'd made his fortune in shipping rather than service, Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, his handshake was firm, though I detected the tremor of deep worry beneath the controlled exterior. Thank you for coming. My wife has told you the particulars. She has provided an excellent overview, Holmes replied. I should like to see the waistcoat, if I may. Sir Edmund retrieved a garment from a drawer in his desk, a handsome waistcoat of charcoal gray silk. Holmes examined it minutely, producing his magnifying glass to study the pocket that Lady Ashworth had mentioned. The stitching was indeed remarkable. Someone had sewn the pocket shut with small, precise stitches using thread that matched the waistcoat so perfectly that the closure would have been nearly invisible to a casual observer. Watson, observe the thread, Holmes said, holding the garment toward the light from the window. What do you notice? I leaned in, studying the stitches carefully. They appear quite fresh, Holmes. The thread has no dust or wear upon it. Precisely. These stitches were made recently, almost certainly last night or early this morning. He turned to Sir Edmund. Tell me, sir, when did you last wear this waistcoat before the gala? Not for several weeks. I had it cleaned and pressed specifically for the event. and it was returned from the cleaners when, 3 days ago, it hung in my dressing room until yesterday evening. Holmes moved to examine the desk, his sharp eyes scanning the various items upon it. I see you are left-handed, Sir Edmund. Our host looked startled. Why, yes. How did you... Of course, the pen is positioned on the left side of the inkwell. Among other indicators, tell me, did you notice anything unusual about any of your guests last evening? Anyone who seemed particularly interested in the sapphire, or who behaved oddly? Sir Edmund frowned in concentration. The sapphire naturally drew considerable attention, as it does each year. Lord Pemberton was quite animated when he won the bidding. He's a collector of gemstones, you see. Father Grayson, as my wife mentioned, examined it closely. There was also a gentleman, a Mr. Cornelius Shade, who studied it with what I thought was rather unusual intensity. He's a jeweler from Hatton Garden, brought by one of my business associates. A jeweler, Holmes repeated, his tone neutral. That is interesting. Anyone else? My nephew Philip seemed rather fixated on it, but then he's always been fascinated by the family heirlooms. He's a sculptor, lives a rather bohemian existence in Shoreditch, talented, but perpetually short of funds. Sir Edmund's expression darkened. I pray you don't think Philip would... I think nothing yet, Holmes interrupted. I merely gather facts. Did your nephew handle the sapphire? No. He admired it from a distance, but did not ask to examine it. I should like to speak with your servants, if you would be so kind as to summon them. Over the next hour, Holmes interviewed each member of the household staff with characteristic thoroughness. The butler, Grimsby, was a dignified man of 60 who clearly took offense at the mere suggestion that any servant might be involved in theft. The housekeeper, Mrs. Blackwood, was equally indignant. The maids and footmen all seemed genuinely distressed by the loss of the sapphire and insisted they had noticed nothing unusual. It was the youngest housemaid, a girl of perhaps 18, named Mary Kettering, who provided the first truly interesting information. Begging your pardon, Mr. Holmes, she said nervously, but I did see something peculiar, though I didn't think much of it at the time. Go on, Holmes encouraged gently. It was near the end of the evening, sir. I was in the servants' corridor. That's the passage behind the main rooms, where we can move about without disturbing the guests. I saw someone coming out of Sir Edmund's study. It struck me as odd, because the study had been locked during the gala. Sir Edmund always locks it when there are large gatherings. Can you describe this person? Mary bit her lip. It was a gentleman, sir. Tall, wearing evening dress, same as all the other guests. I only saw him from behind. He had dark hair, graying at the temples. That describes half the men in attendance, Sir Edmund said, with frustration. Did he see you, Mary? Holmes asked. No, sir. I ducked back into the pantry. I didn't want him to think I was spying on guests. Very sensible. At what time did this occur? It must have been near 11 o'clock, sir. Just before Mrs. Blackwood rang for us to begin clearing the refreshment tables. Holmes thanked the girl and dismissed her. Then he turned to Sir Edmund. I must examine your study thoroughly. I shall also need a list of all guests who attended last evening, with their addresses, if you have them. Of course, anything you require. For the next 40 minutes, I watched as Holmes conducted his examination. He scrutinized every inch of the study with his magnifying glass. The desk, the floor, the windows, the bookshelves. He paid particular attention to the door and its lock, which showed faint scratches that he proclaimed consistent with being picked. Our thief had skills beyond mere sewing, he murmured. Finally, Holmes examined the glass case where the sapphire was normally kept. It sat upon a side table near the window, empty now, its velvet interior indented with the shape of the missing pendant. Watson, observe the case carefully. What do you see? I studied the glass structure. It appears undamaged. The lock is intact. Look at the velvet lining. Do you notice anything? I peered more closely. There, almost invisible against the dark blue velvet, was a single thread, pale gray, perhaps an inch long. A thread, Holmes. Indeed. And what does it tell you? I examined it carefully. It appears to match the thread used to sew shut Sir Edmund's pocket. Excellent, Watson. You improve with each case. Now, consider the sequence of events. Our evidence suggests the thief picked the lock to enter the study. He opened the case, which was not locked, as Sir Edmund confirms, and removed the sapphire. He then placed this thread deliberately, knowing it would later be found. Why? To implicate someone who had access to that particular thread, possibly, or to create a connection between the case and the sewn pocket. A signature, perhaps, or a message. Holmes turned to Sir Edmund. Tell me, sir, where do you keep your sewing supplies? We don't have such things in the study. Lady Ashworth keeps a sewing basket in her sitting room upstairs. Let us examine it. Lady Ashworth's sitting room was a cheerful space decorated in shades of rose and cream. The sewing basket sat beside her favorite chair. Holmes rifled through it methodically, examining threads, needles, and various implements. Nothing matches, he announced after several minutes. The thread used on your waistcoat is of superior quality. Silk thread, expensive, the sort used by professional tailors. Your wife's basket contains ordinary cotton threads. Then where did it come from? Lady Ashworth asked. That, madam, is one of several questions we must answer. Tell me, does your nephew Philip have any particular skills? His occupation is sculpture, you said. Yes, Sir Edmund replied. He works in various media, marble, bronze, wood. He's quite talented with his hands. And would he have reason to possess fine thread for mounting fabric in his sculptures? Perhaps, or for other artistic purposes. Sir Edmund's face paled. I suppose he might, but surely you don't think Philip... I make no accusations. I merely follow where the evidence leads. Dr. Watson and I shall call upon your nephew tomorrow. For now, I should like to take the waistcoat with me for further examination, if you will permit it. Sir Edmund agreed, and Holmes also requested the guest list before we departed into the snowy evening. Back at Baker Street, Holmes spread the waistcoat upon our table and examined it once more with his magnifying glass and various chemical tests from his laboratory equipment. I watched as he worked, knowing better than to interrupt his concentration. Finally, he straightened, his eyes bright with that peculiar gleam that indicated his mind was racing toward a solution. Watson, this is a most ingenious crime. Consider the facts we have established. First, the sapphire disappeared from a pocket that was later found sewn shut. Second, a thread matching the sewing was left in the sapphire's case. Third, Sir Edmund's study was entered by someone with lock-picking skills during the gala. Fourth, a tall, dark-haired man was seen leaving the study at approximately 11 o'clock. Shortly after, Sir Edmund placed the sapphire in his pocket at 10:30. Surely the thread in the case points to the thief, I suggested, or it points to where the thief wishes us to look. Tell me, Watson, how does one steal something from a pocket that is later found sewn shut. I considered the puzzle. The thief must have removed the sapphire and then sewn the pocket closed to make it appear the sapphire was never placed there. But consider the logistics. Sir Edmund wore the waistcoat throughout the evening. He retired to his chambers at 1 o'clock and presumably changed into his nightclothes then. When could the thief have accessed the waistcoat to sew it? While Sir Edmund slept? Possible, but extraordinarily risky. Sir Edmund strikes me as a light sleeper. Most military men are, and Lady Ashworth was in the same chamber. No, Watson. I believe the solution is both simpler and more ingenious. He would say no more that evening, insisting that we required additional information before drawing conclusions. The next morning, Christmas Day, dawned crisp and bright. Holmes was adamant that we visit Philip Ashworth despite the holiday. Crime observes no calendar. Watson, he said, as we made our way through streets, quiet, with the reverence of Christmas morning. Philip Ashworth's studio was located in a converted warehouse in Shoreditch, its large windows providing the excellent light required for artistic work. The young man himself was perhaps 30, with the lean, intense look of someone who devoted himself entirely to his craft. His hands were stained with clay, and he greeted us with evident surprise. "Mr. Holmes? Dr. Watson? To what do I owe this unexpected visit?" "A matter concerning your uncle," Holmes replied. "The disappearance of the family sapphire." "May we come in?" Philip's expression shifted from surprise to concern. "Of course. I heard about that. A terrible business. Uncle Edmund must be devastated." The studio was cluttered with works in progress, clay models, chunks of marble, tools scattered across workbenches. One piece in particular caught my eye. A Madonna and Child, rendered in exquisite detail. "You have considerable talent," I observed. "Thank you, Doctor. I try, though talent alone doesn't pay the rent." His smile was rueful. I attended the gala, hoping to secure a few commissions actually. The wealthy are more generous during the season. "Did you handle your uncle's sapphire at any point during the evening?" Holmes asked abruptly. Philip looked startled. "No, I admired it from a distance, but I didn't ask to examine it. It's a magnificent stone. Uncle Edmund has always been rather protective of it, naturally enough." "Do you sew, Mr. Ashworth?" The question seemed to confuse him. "Sew? Occasionally, yes. Sometimes I need to attach fabric elements to sculptures or create forms for casting." "Why do you ask?" "May I see your sewing supplies?" Philip shrugged and led us to a cabinet where he kept various materials. Among them was a spool of silk thread, fine quality, gray in color. Holmes examined it closely, then asked, "Where did you purchase this?" "From a haberdasher's on Bond Street. Benson and Sons, I believe. They specialize in theatrical supplies, as well as fine fabrics. I sometimes buy materials there." "When did you last use this thread?" "I'm not certain. Several months ago, perhaps. I've been working primarily in stone and metal lately." Holmes pocketed a sample of the thread, thanked Philip for his time, and we departed. "Do you suspect him, Holmes?" I asked once we were outside. "I suspect everyone and no one, Watson. Philip Ashworth has means. He needs money. He has opportunity. He was at the gala, and he possesses thread identical to that used in the crime. Yet something doesn't fit. The theft required not just courage, but extraordinary cunning. Let us visit this haberdasher's establishment." Despite it being Christmas Day, Holmes managed to rouse Mr. Benson himself from his home above the shop. The elderly proprietor confirmed that he sold the particular thread in question, and that it was indeed expensive. 5 shillings a spool. Do you recall who has purchased this thread recently? Holmes asked. Benson stroked his white beard thoughtfully. We keep records of significant purchases. Let me check my ledger. He returned with a large book and ran his finger down the entries. Here we are. In the past 3 months, we've sold that particular thread to 4 customers. Philip Ashworth, as you mentioned, a Lady Catherine Pemberton. I believe she does needlework for charity. A theatrical costumer named Henderson. And, this is interesting, Father Thomas Grayson of St. Barnabas Church. He ordered 2 spools just last week. Said he was repairing vestments. Holmes's eyes flashed with sudden intensity. Father Grayson. Watson. Do you recall? Yes, he was the last person, besides Sir Edmund, to handle the Sapphire at the gala. Precisely, and a vicar would certainly be above suspicion, would he not? Who would question a man of the cloth examining a valuable gemstone? Mr. Benson, you have been most helpful. We hastened back to Baker Street, where Holmes threw himself into his chair and pressed his fingertips together, his eyes closed in concentration. The pieces align themselves, Watson. Consider, Father Grayson handles the sapphire, ostensibly to admire it. Sir Edmund returns it to his waistcoat pocket. Shortly thereafter, a tall, dark-haired man, which matches Grayson's description, is seen leaving Sir Edmund's study, the study that was locked, requiring someone with lock-picking skills that might be possessed by someone who once led a different life before taking holy orders. But Holmes, how could Grayson have stolen the sapphire from Sir Edmund's pocket? You yourself said the logistics were nearly impossible. Holmes opened his eyes and smiled. Not nearly impossible, Watson. Completely impossible. Because that is not what happened. The sapphire was never in Sir Edmund's pocket after Father Grayson handled it. I stared at him in bewilderment, but Sir Edmund distinctly remembers placing it back in his pocket. He remembers placing something in his pocket. But consider the conditions. A crowded room, dim gaslight, multiple distractions. Father Grayson asked to examine the sapphire. He held it up to the light, as witnesses confirmed, and then he appeared to return it to Sir Edmund. But what if, in that moment of misdirection, he performed a simple conjurer's substitution? What if he returned not the sapphire, but a worthless blue glass imitation? Good heavens! Then Sir Edmund unknowingly placed a fake in his pocket. Exactly. Grayson departed with the real sapphire, concealed on his person, probably in a specially prepared pocket inside his clerical robes. Later that evening, he used his lock-picking skills, perhaps learned in a misspent youth, to enter Sir Edmund's study. He retrieved the glass imitation from the case where Sir Edmund would later place it in the morning, not realizing he was actually placing a forgery. Then Grayson performed his masterstroke. He picked the lock of Sir Edmund's dressing room, removed the waistcoat, and sewed the pocket shut, to create the appearance that the sapphire had never been placed there. Precisely, and he left a thread in the case to confuse matters further, perhaps hoping to implicate someone like Philip Ashworth, who also purchased similar thread. When Sir Edmund discovered the sapphire missing this morning, he would find his pocket sewn shut and assume he must have been mistaken about placing it there. The police, finding no evidence of theft, would conclude it was all a mistake, or that the sapphire had never left its case. A perfect crime, or it would have been, had not Lady Ashworth insisted something was amiss. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter cold. Holmes, this is diabolical, but we must prove it. Where would Grayson have hidden the sapphire? That, my dear Watson, is what we shall discover. Come, We have a Christmas call to make at St. Barnabas Church. St. Barnabas was a modest church in Marylebone, its Gothic spire reaching toward the gray sky. We found Father Grayson in the vestry, preparing for evening services. He was indeed tall and dark-haired, with distinguished gray at the temples, perhaps 45 years of age, with the kind of handsome, sincere face that inspired immediate trust. "Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson," he greeted us with evident surprise. "What brings you to St. Barnabas on this holy day?" "A matter of some urgency, Father," Holmes replied. "It concerns the disappearance of Sir Edmund Ashworth's Sapphire." A shadow crossed Grayson's face. "Ah, yes, I heard about that. Most distressing. Sir Edmund showed it to me at the gala. A magnificent stone. I do hope it's recovered." "I'm certain it shall be," Holmes said smoothly. "Tell me, Father, how long have you served at St. Barnabas?" 5 years now. Before that, I was a missionary in India for a decade. Fascinating. And before your calling to the church, a slight hesitation. I had a varied youth, Mr. Holmes. I wasn't always on the path of righteousness, but that was many years ago. Quite so. Father, I notice you have a considerable collection of vestments and the church fabrics. Do you do much sewing and repair work yourself? When necessary, yes. The parish budget is modest. I mend what I can. I thought so. You recently purchased expensive silk thread from Benson & Sons on Bond Street. Rather costly for simple repairs, wouldn't you say? Grayson's expression grew wary. I wanted the repairs to be of good quality. These vestments must last. Holmes's voice remained pleasant, almost conversational. "Father Grayson, I'm going to tell you a story. If any of it is inaccurate, please correct me. You attended Sir Edmund's gala with the intention of stealing the Ashworth sapphire. You examined it closely, praised its beauty, and through sleight of hand, perhaps learned in your varied youth, you switched it with a glass imitation. Sir Edmund, distracted and in dim light, noticed nothing. Later, you used lock-picking skills to enter his study, and later, his dressing room, where you sewed his waistcoat pocket shut to create confusion." The vicar's face had gone pale. "This is absurd. I am a man of God. You are a man, certainly. Whether of God is between you and your conscience." Holmes's tone sharpened. "The sapphire was intended for charity, Father. £15,000 for London's poorest. Did that not give you pause?" For a long moment, silence hung in the vestry. Then Father Grayson sank into a chair, his face in his hands. "How did you know?" he whispered. "The thread was suggestive. Your description matched the man seen leaving the study, but the final proof would be finding the sapphire itself. Where is it, Father Grayson?" The vicar rose slowly and walked to a small chest in the corner of the vestry. He removed a key from around his neck and opened it. From within, wrapped in a cloth, he produced the Ashworth sapphire, its blue depths catching the light like trapped sky. "I didn't want to do it," he said, his voice breaking, "but the church is drowning in debt. We're about to lose the building. I thought, if I could sell the sapphire quietly, abroad perhaps, I could save St. Barnabas. I told myself it was for a good cause, that God would understand, but I was lying to myself. It was theft, plain and simple." "Why did you not simply appeal to Sir Edmund?" I asked gently. "He's known for his generosity." "Pride, Dr. Watson. Foolish, sinful pride. I didn't want to beg." Tears ran down his cheeks. "I convinced myself this was different, that I was Robin Hood stealing from the rich. But I'm just a thief who betrayed a good man's trust. What happens now?" Holmes took the sapphire and examined it briefly before wrapping it again. "That depends on Sir Edmund. But I suggest, Father, that you accompany us to return what you've stolen and make your confession. It is Christmas, after all, a time for forgiveness, if one genuinely seeks it. The reunion of Sir Edmund with his Sapphire was a touching scene. Lady Ashworth wept with relief, and Sir Edmund himself seemed almost unable to speak. When Father Grayson, trembling and pale, offered his confession and his deepest apologies, I thought Sir Edmund might strike him. Instead, after a long, terrible silence, Sir Edmund said quietly, "Father Grayson, you violated my trust and attempted to steal from the very charity you claim to serve, that I cannot forgive easily." However, he glanced at the sapphire in his hand. "It is Christmas Day. Dr. Watson, Holmes, would you excuse us? I wish to speak with Father Grayson privately." We withdrew to the drawing room, where Lady Ashworth served us tea with shaking hands. "Will he summon the police?" she asked. "That is for your husband to decide," Holmes replied. After 20 minutes, the two men emerged. Father Grayson's eyes were red from weeping, but there was something resembling peace in his expression. Sir Edmund addressed us formally. "Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, I have decided not to press charges. Father Grayson has agreed to leave London and his position at St. Barnabas. He will enter a monastery where he can contemplate his actions and perhaps find redemption. The sapphire is restored, and no lasting harm has been done." "You are most generous, Sir Edmund," I said. "I am most aware of my own failings," he replied quietly. "Father Grayson was correct about one thing. I am wealthy beyond measure while others suffer. Perhaps this incident is a reminder that charity begins not with grand gestures, but with simple human compassion. I shall see that St. Barnabas's debts are paid." Had Father Grayson simply asked, I would have helped gladly. Father Grayson departed shortly thereafter. Escorted by Sir Edmund's footman, Lady Ashworth insisted we stay for Christmas dinner, and we could hardly refuse. It was a surprisingly pleasant evening, and as I watched the candlelight play across the recovered sapphire, which Sir Edmund had placed on display, as a reminder of the day's events, I reflected on the strange ways that grace and redemption find us. Later, as our cab rattled back through the snowy streets to Baker Street, I turned to Holmes. "That was remarkably well done, my friend. How did you know to focus on Father Grayson specifically? The thread evidence might have pointed to Philip Ashworth just as easily." Holmes smiled his thin smile. "Several factors converged, Watson. First, Philip Ashworth, while poor, showed no sign of desperation. His studio was well stocked, and he spoke of seeking commissions, not stealing. Second, the crime required someone above suspicion, someone who could handle the sapphire openly without arousing doubt. A vicar fits that description perfectly. Third, and most telling, was the nature of the sewn pocket. How so? Consider the psychology, Watson. Why sew the pocket shut? It was unnecessary for the theft itself. The thief could have simply taken the sapphire and left matters mysterious, but sewing the pocket shut served a specific psychological purpose. It created doubt, confusion, the appearance that perhaps no crime had occurred at all. That speaks to someone intimately familiar with human nature and the manipulation of perception. A vicar who must understand the human heart in all its complexity would think in such terms. An artist like Philip would think visually, directly. A jeweler like Mr. Shade would think in terms of value and replacement. But a man of the cloth, particularly one struggling with his own conscience, would create a crime that questioned its own existence. Brilliant reasoning, Holmes. Elementary psychology, Watson. The human mind reveals itself in its methods. He gazed out at the snow-covered city. Father Grayson was a man torn between his genuine faith and his desperation. That internal conflict manifested in a crime that was simultaneously bold and hesitant, brilliant and self-sabotaging. He wanted to steal the sapphire, yet he also wanted to create doubt, perhaps because part of him wished to be caught, to be stopped before he went too far. And now, he goes to a monastery, where he may find more peace than he would have found with the sapphire. Sir Edmund showed wisdom in his mercy. The criminal justice system is not always the best tool for addressing human failings. We rode in companionable silence for a while, watching the Christmas lights in windows, hearing the distant sound of carolers. Then Holmes spoke again, more quietly. You know, Watson, there is something almost poignant about this case. Father Grayson sought to save his church through theft, not understanding that the very act of stealing destroyed what he was trying to preserve. The church is not the building, after all. It is the integrity of its servants. He would have saved bricks and mortar while losing his soul. Yet he confessed when confronted. That speaks to some remaining conscience. Indeed, and perhaps that is the true Christmas message in all this, that redemption is possible even for those who stray, provided they possess the courage to face their own darkness. He smiled suddenly. Good heavens, Watson, I'm becoming philosophical in my old age. The season must be affecting me, I laughed. You're hardly old, Holmes, and a bit of philosophy suits you. A dangerous precedent. Next, you'll have me attending church services and singing hymns. Would that be so terrible? He considered this seriously. Perhaps not, though I suspect my singing voice would clear the pews faster than any confession of theft. We arrived back at Baker Street to find Mrs. Hudson had left us a Christmas supper: cold roast beef, bread, cheese, and a small plum pudding. As we settled before the fire to eat, Holmes raised his glass of wine to the Ashworth Sapphire, Watson, restored to its rightful owner, and to the peculiar mercy of the Christmas season, which turns even consulting detectives into philosophers. And to you, Holmes, I replied warmly, for seeing what others miss, and for knowing when justice is best served by understanding rather than punishment. We clinked glasses, and the firelight sparkled in the wine like captured rubies. Outside, the snow continued to fall on London, blanketing the great city in white, covering the footprints of the day's drama, offering the clean slate that every new day promises. I thought of Father Grayson beginning his journey toward whatever redemption awaited him. I thought of Sir Edmund, who had chosen mercy over vengeance. I thought of the sapphire itself, that beautiful blue stone that had been the catalyst for such human drama, stolen and restored, lost and found, like so many things at Christmas. You're pensive again, Watson, Holmes observed. I was thinking about the sapphire. It's just a stone, really, yet it provoked such extraordinary behavior. All valuable things do, my friend. They reveal us, our generosity and our greed, our nobility and our weakness. The sapphire was merely a mirror in which human nature reflected itself. He set down his glass and reached for his pipe, but it had a happy ending, which is more than many of our cases can claim. The sapphire is restored. The thief has found a path to redemption, and Sir Edmund has learned something about compassion. One might even say it's a Christmas miracle. Do you believe in miracles, Holmes? He paused in lighting his pipe, his gray eyes thoughtful. I believe in the miraculous capacity of human beings to surprise me, Watson, which amounts to much the same thing. Now then, shall we have some of this excellent pudding before it grows cold? Even detectives must observe the traditions of the season. As we ate our Christmas supper, the clock on the mantel chimed 10. In churches across London, midnight services were still hours away, but I felt we had already witnessed something sacred. The restoration, not just of a jewel, but of trust, hope, and the possibility of forgiveness. It was, all things considered, a very good Christmas indeed. And so concludes our tale of the frosted sapphire, a mystery solved not just by brilliant deduction, but by understanding the human heart in all its complexity. I hope this story has given you some comfort tonight, dear listener. Perhaps it's helped you drift towards sleep, or simply provided a peaceful hour away from the concerns of your day. That is the gift I hope to give you each time we meet here. If you enjoyed tonight's mystery, I would be deeply grateful if you would share Sleepy Tales with someone who might need a moment of calm. Leave a review if you're able, or visit our support page to help keep these stories coming. Your kindness makes this little corner of peace possible. As you settle in for sleep now, know that whatever mysteries trouble your own heart, there is always the possibility of resolution, of understanding, of grace. Like Holmes and Watson, before their fire, like the sapphire restored to its case, may you too find rest and restoration. Thank you for spending this time with me. Sleep well, dear friend. May your dreams be peaceful, and may tomorrow bring you clarity, warmth, and perhaps even a small miracle or two. Until our next tale, I'm Evan Reed. Good night.